From ConnectBooster, I'm Ryan Goodman. Today, I have the distinct pleasure of talking to Brian Weiss, CEO and founder of ITECH Solutions, an MSP based in San Luis Obispo, California. This is an insightful conversation as Brian shares how he and his team were able to overcome some major obstacles over the past couple of years, and despite all of those challenges, actually strengthen and grow his business.
And so it was about a 2-week remediation. It was about 34 of our clients that got hit. We were able to get all of them recovered except for one that we didn't have backups of their backups, so we had to pay the Bitcoin for the ransom. All in all, is about $500,000 in gross damages. That includes, loss of growth, everything. It was about $250,000 of just hard losses, like money out of the bank. Our whole team came out of it like, in my opinion, rock stars. I couldn't have done it without my team. I mean, they were really there to put in, tons of hours in getting everyone back up and running. And it kind of created this PTSD when it comes to security for our team.
Here's the podcast with Brian. Hey, Brian, thanks for taking the time out of your busy day. I know prior to us kicking off the recording, we were both saying, how is it Wednesday right now? It feels like you wake up on Monday and all of a sudden it's Wednesday afternoon. So I appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to get together with us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome, man. So I am just tear the Band-Aid off right away. I'm super interested, and I know our listeners are going to be really interested in digging into the hacking incident that you guys had dealt with inside of your business, some of the resulting business changes that you've gone through based on that. But before we get into that, I want to ask you a couple other questions just to get people to understand a little bit about you as a person and where you came from and how you got to where you're at in business. Are you cool with that?
Sure. Yeah.
Awesome. So a couple of the basics, let's get them out of the way. You can give us 100,000-foot view about your business and then where people can find you online as well.
Sure. So we're an MSP. We currently have 12 employees servicing about 65 clients across about 2,500 devices.
Awesome.
And we're we service San Luis Obispo County in California, which is right on the coast, kind of in between LA and San Francisco, if you're looking at a map.
Yeah.
And we started in 2005 as a break fix company, went to the MSP fixed rate model in 2008.
Yeah.
And then fast forward, a lot of stuff's happened in between then, but fast forward 2018, we had our security incident, which we learned a lot from, and now we're positioned as a security first MSP, where we really look at any technology we work with or implement, either internally or with our clients. We're always looking at potential security vulnerabilities around that and how we can cover up any security holes.
Yeah.
So, and then, find us online on the World Wide Web.
Yeah.
It's
boom.
Yeah, ITECH-solutions.com. It's kind of a long domain name. I've been trying to buy ITECH.com, which is owned by a hockey company, then bought by Bauer, and then someone else snagged it up before we could get it. But yeah, ITECH-solutions.com is what I have to say every time I tell someone my email address.
ITECH-solutions.com. Here, I'll say it for you too.
Yeah.
then it's not one-sided. So side question, I am the master of going off into tangents. I apologize in advance. But you guys are in the middle of, what's going on out on the West Coast in terms of fires. How has everything been inside of your county? Have you dealt with any client issues, or have you been removed from some of that right now inside of your business?
So specifically to do with fires, it's ruined some vacations of mine that I had planning for camping, but we're being so close to the coast and the county we're in, luckily those fires haven't impacted us at all. So it's mainly just the smoke that we have to deal with at this point in time. But we have had some smaller fires nearby that, you know, we don't have, the terrain isn't as rugged here as it is when you get up into the forests, you know, the national forests. So that usually they can put it out quick enough before it does too much damage.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. That makes sense. We're glad that it hasn't been a huge direct issue for you guys. So you had mentioned that you had changed from the break fix model over to an MSP in 2008. Did I get that date right?
Yep. Yeah.
So what got you started in your business originally?
I'll rewind all the way back to high school. I was in video games, and at my high school, I was taking some computer classes, but they were all Macs at the time. So I learned Macs and kind of how to work on those, how to fix those. But I also loved gaming, which led me into the PC world. And that's kind of where I got into networking, because, you know, you want to network systems together so you can game. And back then we're dealing with the BNC connectors with the coax, you know, and all the troubleshooting that goes along with a you know, a non-IP network that's broadcast.
So, together the LAN party style events. Yeah.
So, you know, that kind of early introduction into computers, along with kind of a knack for math and troubleshooting. I just fell into computers as, hey, why not make this a career? I worked for a small mom and pop shop, kind of like a computer repair shop right out of high school. Yeah. And got a lot of good hands-on experience while going to college, and helped the mom and pop shop grow from 1 to 3 stores. And we had kind of this residential and business service going on. Right. And I just decided after about 3 years to go off on my own, because I wanted to pursue businesses only, and just kind of parted ways. Started as an independent contractor for a couple of years before growing to a size where I needed employees, and that's when I started ITECH in 2005. So the driver was really wanting to focus on that business vertical and not work on the residential side? Yeah, I was, by the time I left the computer repair shop, you know, I was managing like 5 other technicians. Sure. And I saw a conflict of interest when we're servicing both residential and business. We would have situations where a business would be down, not able to operate, yet we can't get to them right away because we've got these other, you know, systems we're working on from residential clients. And so it was kind of a new direction I wanted to take that company, and they wanted to stay in the residential game. Sure. So that's when I decided to part ways. I felt like it was hindering my ability and my quality of service that we were able to, you know, give to clients, just because we're also doing the residential work. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Appreciate you sharing that path. I find it so interesting how many different ways people end up on the back of the lion, looking brave, and everyone's like, I saw this meme on Facebook the other day where it's like, everyone's looking at the entrepreneur on the back of a lion and like, wow, he's so brave. And the entrepreneur on the lion's like, how the heck did I get on the lion? And how do I not fall off and let this thing eat me? You know? Yeah. So there's always those different paths that we all take to land, you know, where we're at right now. That's cool. That's cool. Now we're gonna talk about some challenging times, of course, inside of your business, but I'm also interested in, you know, what are some of the big milestones and success that you've seen inside of your organization over your tenure running the organization? So I've always been very forward thinking, which I think is a good skill to have as an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. And when we started our business in 2005, we actually had a web department as well. So we did web services, web development, and IT. Yeah. And so I saw, SaaS services being the future even back then, which is why we wanted to provide those web development services. So that was a success, developing a web department, building a client base, even creating a SaaS product around continuing education units.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a spin-off company we did. I ended up selling that actually in 2018 to my business partner. We parted ways. I had a business partner that started with me.
Yeah.
And he basically took that business and I took the IT business.
Yeah.
But that was definitely a learning experience for me, and just understanding that world, the development world, and helped me understand too on the IT side where eventually a lot of the technology my clients are using is going to end up.
Yeah.
So it really got me into some early thinking about the future and where things are going, to the point where I even recognized the break fix model was something that is not going to, be as successful as it once was,
Yeah.
So in '08, another kind of, really these are more like challenges that I've overcome, the recession in '08, I'm a break fix shop. How do I stay alive? And
yeah,
I went to a lot of my clients, and I had a good 3 years of data at that time of how we've been servicing their account. Went to the ones that were more proactive, that typically wouldn't just call us when things broke.
Sure.
And showed them reports of kind of what they've spent with us over the past years. Came up with a formula of like a per device, per user, where it's a fixed rate model. And I said, hey, you're concerned about managing expenses during this time, right? I'm one of your vendors. I'm concerned about managing my income and
absolutely
stay alive. Why don't we look at this model where, rather than seeing peaks and valleys in your IT expenses, we average it out and create a monthly model where it's recurring, and and you don't have to worry about getting charged hourly every time you pick the phone up,
right.
And it's more of I saw it as more of a partnership too, where the client would be more reluctant to want to call us anytime something happens, or anytime they want guidance, because they're not worried about that hour clock starting where they're getting billed.
Yeah.
So it created a more proactive relationship with our clients, having this agreement where they could call us, anytime they needed us. And the other thing I saw too that was kind of a conflict of interest when I looked at the business model in general when it comes to IT services, is that when you're on a break fix model and you're billing hourly, there's really no reward for getting things done more efficiently or preventing an issue from happening altogether.
Right.
And you run into growth challenges where, when do you hire that next resource that you need, or next technician? Because 1 month on a break fix model, you could be wishing you had 2 extra techs, and the next month, it's crickets, and you're wondering, why did I hire those 2 guys? And so it creates an easier growth model where you're not having to stack the deck with more clients than you can handle, just to guarantee you're going to be able to keep paying the bills, right? And so when you think of, like emergency response time, right? If I've got more clients than I can handle because they're only paying me when they need me, and a bunch of emergencies break out, naturally, I'm going to be understaffed. I'm not going to be able to handle all of that. So, those are other points that I explained to the clients, as I was pitching this, new idea, that basically came down to the point of, with this new billing model, we're now in a situation where we want to be more efficient in how we deliver our services. I want to make sure my technicians are trained, so they're not spending 2 hours fixing something that should have only taken 1 hour. Right. And so they're going to get a better level of service. I'm going to be incentivized to want to provide a better level of service. Whereas on a break fix model, I'm making less money. right? If my guy can fix something in 1 hour that would have taken him 2 hours on the quick fix, I would have made more money, you know?
Yeah.
So that was another thing that I felt like, you know, we were somewhat early to the curve on, you know, the MSP fixed model that really helped us survive the recession. And so we started in 08 getting everyone on these fixed billing models. And when 2018 came around, we have, you know, 90% of our clients on this fixed recurring model.
Yeah.
So that was one of the things, and I'll get into a lot of other things that helped us really survive that time, which I'm happy about. I would say another challenge that I'm still overcoming, but it's something you learn as you grow a business. And it's just the fact that when you start out small or with less staff, naturally everyone's wearing a bunch of hats, right? You don't have enough employees to just assign individual roles to.
Right.
So the experience of adding employees and delegating and handing, you know, off roles that I or another employee might normally handle, and the challenges that come with being able to trust that it's going to get done the right way, you know, is definitely something that I continue to deal with even now. You know, even at 12 employees, I'm still a bottleneck in different certain areas. And so there's that aspect. There's also the aspect of stickiness with the clients. You know, when I started ITECH, I was the guy. You know, it was more like it was Brian, not necessarily
selling you, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And so as I grew, you know, you have those clients that are like, no, we want Brian. You know, where's Brian at? You know, who's this guy? And redeveloping relationships and building that trust with your clients that, hey, this person can take care of you just as good as I could have.
Right.
And don't worry if something doesn't go the way that, you know, you didn't want it to go, we'll figure out why it happened and prevent it from happening again, right?
Right.
You know? And and for the most part, our clients understood that, hey, for us to be able to grow and scale and be able to provide them services efficiently, like I can't be the guy all the time.
Right.
You know?
Only so much time, only so much Brian, you know?
Yeah. So those are challenges that I think any company, but even especially ours, deals with, just because it's so heavily relationship based.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, big inflection points. And you're right. I think you called it out on the service-based business model. It is that relationship sale, right? And so how do you transition out of those relationships and you being the guy in those situations? It's a real challenge. It sounds like you guys are doing a great job of working through that though, and seeing success in it.
Yeah, it definitely takes perseverance, you know, and just, I think, you know, I've had one of my entrepreneurial skills is, you know, well, I don't know if you call it a skill, it could be a negative, you know, it turns into like over perfection, right? But, you know, always feeling like there's a better way to do something, and understanding that, hey, you know, we're going to do good today, we're going to do better tomorrow, right? And just understanding that any challenge that comes your way, try to turn it into an opportunity to learn from it or do better, or, you know, or come out taking advantage of the challenge somehow, you know?
Right. Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, it's that mindset, right? It's that mindset that we're all going to deal with challenges. There's no question. But what are the things that you're going to be able to control? Well, mindset is one of the big ones that hopefully you can control, at least have a little bit of direction over how that output is handled. So that's cool. That's cool. Hey guys, Ryan here for a quick break from our show. We want to thank Brian Weiss for joining us on today's episode. You can find out more about Brian and ITECH Solutions on their company's website, itech-solutions.com. Now, this wouldn't be an ad break without running some ads, right? So I'd like to talk to you about our product, ConnectBooster. ConnectBooster is the premier accounts receivable management and payment automation tool for the channel. When our partners invoice or bill their clients, ConnectBooster automates the payment, automates the accounting, and gives 24/7, 365 visibility to end clients to see current invoices, past invoices, auto pay settings, securely stored checking and credit card data, and so much more. We all know it's hard enough to get in the door of a prospect. It's hard enough to close the deal. Guys, it shouldn't be hard to accept their money when the sale is made. If your business isn't already one of the thousands that's getting paid faster with ConnectBooster, reach out to us at connectbooster.com to learn more about how you can automate your cash flow. Before we get back to the show, we want to let you know all the ways that you can find us online. Visit our website, connectbooster.com/podcast, to listen to new episodes before they air on the podcast network. If you'd rather wait, our episodes are available on iTunes, Spotify, Google, and anywhere you listen to podcasts. So search ConnectBooster on your favorite platform, subscribe to get notified when there's a new episode. If you have suggestions for future episodes or you want to be a guest on the podcast, email us at podcast@connectbooster.com or send us a message on Facebook or Twitter and we'll point you in the right direction. Lastly, if you like the show, leave us a review wherever you're listening and tell us why you like it. Thanks for listening to the Confessions of an IT Business Owner. We'll get back to the podcast and talk to you soon. I'm going to shift gears now. We had talked a little bit about a security incident early on that had happened in your company in 2018, and I'd love to. I'm sure it was a very difficult time, but it also sounds like something where you have taken that. We talk about attitude. We talk about how you react to something that's difficult. It sounds like you've taken some real control in your business and taken a very tough situation and come out the other side stronger, whole new perspective on business, a whole new perspective on security. And so, I'd really love to dig into what happened and kind of go through that progression. Now we're here talking in 2020. What are you seeing on the other side of that incident?
Sure. So I'll explain the incident real quick.
Yeah.
Those that maybe haven't heard the story, but essentially in March of 2018, we had an RMM platform we were using at the time that didn't have built-in MFA, required a third-party product, and we had been with that RMM for 10 years, and we were kind of looking for something new anyway. So we found a new RMM that did have MFA. We were about halfway in the process of migrating our clients to the new RMM when our old one got hit. And from everything we've looked into, it looks like it was as simple as a phishing email where they got a hold of the credentials, naturally no MFA, got in. And they started Friday night, worked all the way till Monday morning, basically trying to get into every system they could. The RMM platform that didn't have MFA also had this cool feature where if you closed out of the remote, desktop tool that it comes with, but didn't log the machine off or lock it, it left the user console logged in. So then if you later gain access to this RMM, you click a machine and it's logged in, it takes you right to the desktop, in a lot of cases, a desktop with, admin access.
Yeah.
So that was essentially all they did is they just kept clicking on machines, seeing which ones they could access, and had that console access to, and then set up their ransomware. They disabled antivirus, set up ransomware to deploy, looked for any local backups they could essentially delete or remove. And that Monday morning, initially when it happened, I just thought it was another ransomware attack, a new variant out there that's getting everyone. And I'm sitting here researching online, trying to find other people having this issue. And just then, one of my techs comes in and says, "Hey, I noticed a pattern here with these clients that got hit. They're all clients that are still on our old RMM." And so that's when we pulled the SQL logs, found out exactly what systems they got into, and created our roadmap for repairing this essentially. And so it was about a 2-week remediation. It was about 34 of our clients that got hit. We were able to get all of them recovered except for one that we didn't have backups of their backups, so we had to pay the ransomware. Or the Bitcoin for the ransom. And all in all is about $500,000 in gross damages.
Wow.
That includes, loss of growth, everything. It was about 250,000 of just hard losses, like money out of the bank.
Yeah.
Our insurance company, we did have cybersecurity insurance, thankfully covered about 150K of that after fighting tooth and nail with them.
Yeah.
And we came out, our whole team came out of it like, in my opinion, rock stars. I couldn't have done it without my team. I mean, they were really there to put in, tons of hours in getting everyone back up and running.
Yeah.
And it kind of created this PTSD when it comes to security for our team.
I can imagine.
So I spent the next probably 9 months to a year after that just burying my head in just security policies and tools, and initially wanted to become an MSSP. And then I realized, well, that's like a whole nother echelon of IT services. You're competing with these large groups like the Robert Herjavec group, and you're putting yourself in an area, and I didn't really want to hire any full-time security professionals either, engineers. So that's a whole nother investment. So I realized we're going to be a security first MSP. Is kind of how we came out of that. And I learned, everything I could about multi-layered security, created an architecture and a stack that we use internally and for our clients to, cover as many bases as possible as far as, identity, security, device, network, data. And the interesting thing is by that time, we were fairly mature as a, MSP minus the security needs.
Right.
And we actually went almost 2 years without taking on any new clients. And I did that primarily because we were focusing on getting our own house in order, number one.
Right.
And number two, looking at our existing client base and getting them in order. What I realized that probably the number one learning curve out of this, which I wish I would have known earlier, is that your clients are essentially a shared risk if they have a high risk tolerance, right? And so it's all about the risk tolerance. Like, I feel like a lot of MSPs out there have too high of a risk tolerance,
Sure.
And making sure you lower that and establish, okay, what are you able to tolerate or not? And then making sure you get clients that are in that same mindset and that are willing to invest in the proper security themselves. Because even if your own house is in order, but you've got clients out there that aren't up to par with security, they could have an emergency one day that turns into your worst nightmare. And naturally it's going to be your fault because they look to you as the expert. And so, it really started that conversation with our existing clients of, hey, let's get you on this technology roadmap with all this added security. And if you can't afford it now, that's fine, but let's at least get you moving towards that route. And then clients that didn't see the value or have that, or had too high of a risk tolerance, we essentially parted ways with.
Right.
just because it wasn't worth having them, the stress we went through. I didn't want to put my team through that again, you know? So I'm trying to remember your original question. I've been kind of going off on.
You really nailed the incident. I appreciate it. And it sounds like I can imagine there were some pretty uncomfortable client conversations that came from that. You know, how did you go about navigating that? You had 30 or more, was it 34 clients that had an issue like that. What was next? How did you deal with the relationship, with those clients?
So, luckily, most of them were very long-term clients. So we already had very good relationships established with them, but we didn't have any type of incident response plan in place where, this happened and we went to this document that tells us everything we need to do. So we literally had to put it together on the fly.
Yeah. And
one of the things, that we're always, we hold as one of our values is integrity, and transparency with our clients. So we didn't hold anything back. We told them exactly what happened. We told them, we showed them through the amount of hours that we put in and dedication and getting them back up that, we weren't going to walk away until, we knew this was resolved. We didn't charge them anything for the cleanup, of course.
Yeah.
We weren't billing them for a mistake we made.
Right.
But it really just came down to communication and transparency, because in that situation, the client just wants to know you're there for them, right? Even if it's your fault.
Right.
Right. I guess no matter whose fault it is, they want to know that they know it's not something they can fix.
Right.
And so their concern is literally like, are you going to be able to clean this up? Or like, am I having to find someone else to clean this up for me?
Right.
And so it was really putting that peace of mind together. Nowadays, it's much easier. I've actually helped some now clients. They weren't clients before, but they got hit with ransomware, and the insurance companies brought us in. We've got a relationship with insurance companies where we do ransomware cleanups now. And it's interesting because there's a whole new process now than there was back in 2018. Now, the first thing you want to do is call your insurance company, immediately get them involved, and let them guide the process. Because they're ultimately going to be the ones to, give fund any damages that you need reimbursement for. So you want to follow everything to a T. And they bring in a cybersecurity firm. They bring in a Bitcoin broker, even to handle any potential Bitcoin.
Sure.
They bring in a company like us that does kind of the hands-on cleanup. Mm-hmm. They bring in a legal team. And so it's this whole process now that I wish was in place back when this happened, because it would have been a lot less stressful for us.
Yeah.
But definitely, that's the other thing that MSPs should be doing right now is, even if you feel like you're secure and nothing's going to happen, which, let's face it, I bet if they spent, a few hours really looking at their setup, they'd be able to find some area they can improve security. At least get some sort of basic incident response plan down.
Good advice.
If this happens to us or one of our clients, like, who's responsible for doing what?
Yeah.
And what things are you going to start with? What things are you maybe going to be doing at the same time? Calling the insurance company should be number one nowadays. So that was something I wish we would have had, that I feel like we could have performed even better. And when we did go back to our clients kind of as a post-mortem after we had everything cleaned up and said, hey, I know this happened. Here are the things we're doing to prevent this from happening again, but we want to learn from our clients too. Like, what, in your opinion, what could we have done better?
Yeah.
And there were a few clients where we didn't communicate as well as we could have.
Sure.
And in the situation we were, unfortunately, it was kind of squeaky wheel gets the grease as we're juggling everything. So there
Right.
were some non-squeaky wheels, if you will, that said, I would have preferred a more regular follow-up. So now we actually have someone dedicated. If anything like this ever happens again, there's just a dedicated communications person who deals with the communication between everyone, our team, our clients, insurance company, legal team, whatever it may be. They're like the central hub and point.
That's awesome. You had mentioned that incident response plan. Is there anywhere that you have seen now or been exposed to where people can get an understanding or a good framework or a baseline to start putting that together?
So I'm part of some security groups, and we're working on putting something MSP facing together. There's a lot of, you'll find boilerplate plans all over the place. You know, some of them are like 60 pages long.
Yeah, so it's almost.
What I guess my advice there would be definitely follow, you know, like NIST standards.
Yeah.
CIS 1 through 20 is a good control set as well. They have CMMC that's coming out as well. Anytime you're building a response plan or any security policy for that matter, it's really good to use, you know, some sort of set of controls that are standards out there.
Right.
I will say when it comes to incident response, I'm of the opinion of less is more. So like, you know, a 5-page incident response plan is probably going to get used more than a 60-page,
Sure.
right? In the sense that you just glaze over something that's 60 pages long.
Right.
And so start simple. Don't feel like you have to overthink it or overdo it. And it starts really with, in my opinion, assigning responsibilities on who's going to be handling what and who's going to be responsible for what. You don't have to get it perfect, but you have to make sure that you don't allow things to fall through the cracks. And that's where the assigning responsibilities and initial immediate actions are probably most important.
That makes a lot of sense.
And I say that too because, kind of back to my point with the insurance company, is they will help you guide the process, right? So they've got their own plan in place to try to help you get through this as quickly as possible so that it minimizes any potential damages. I would even go as far as talking with your insurance company, your cybersecurity insurance, and asking them and saying, hey, what should our incident response plan look like to make sure that we're following the proper steps you would expect us to follow in an event like this?
Yeah.
I'm giving a talk next week with our local chamber, and they're bringing in a cybersecurity expert from the local forensics lab with our county sheriff. And the thing to keep in mind here is that the insurance company is really the savior when something like this happens, because there is no like catch the criminal and have them pay for damages.
Right.
You know, it's mitigate, you know, potential damages, you know, try to eliminate or minimize, I should say.
Yeah.
Any further potential damage once you realize the incident happened, and get things running back to normal. And all of those costs ultimately are going to be covered by the insurance company. And so making sure you follow their cue is really important. And also making sure you communicate with your clients, because you want to avoid any further lawsuits where they feel like there's negligence on your part.
Right.
If they can prove, or they feel like they're getting that feeling like you're neglecting them, or you didn't pay attention to something you should have. You know, then you've got even additional damages. With our clients, all 34 of them, not one of them came after us for damages.
Yeah, that's incredible, Brian.
Which was one other thing I was, you know, worried about, and I was prepared to deal with. But we lucked out that we handled it in a way where we didn't trigger any clients to feel like they needed to do that.
When it sounds like, you know, you guys dealing with this head on, you know, following those core values, integrity, having absolute transparency with your client around the incident, yes, there were some big challenges, but you've come through the other side. I mean, it doesn't sound like you had a lot of breakage from the client side. You had a lot of those clients stick with you, and now we're at a place where you're approaching business a whole new way with these individuals. So I hate to go up and be like, oh, net positive. It's such a weird thing to say, but at the same time, it's almost like if this wouldn't have happened, how would business look like today? It's almost like that hindsight is like.
While it happened, I was telling myself, even though I didn't believe myself, I'm going to look back on this and be glad it happened.
Yeah.
And because that's what I wanted to make out of it. I wanted to turn that challenge into an opportunity. And now I look back and I feel like if it didn't happen, we'd be 3 to 5 years behind where we're at now, easily. And just this was 2018. I had just started getting involved in the industry in 2016, believe it or not. That was something I haven't really talked about. Is kind of 2016 is when I started looking at a lot of vendor tools, going to events, talking with other MSPs. So I was kind of sharing my story and my growth and learning a lot. But some of those initial relationships I made, I used, like especially with Datto, I've done a lot with, to tell my story.
Yeah.
I literally went to Datto. I said, hey, I want to tell my story at DattoCon or any webinars, events. Like I want to get it out there. I want people to know this is happening.
Yeah.
How can you prevent it? Right.
Absolutely.
I went another shift when that security event happened, and it kind of started happening when I got involved with the MSP community. Is that I look at other MSPs as less as competitors and more as allies.
Yeah.
Now, because we're really all fighting the same war. I mean, it's the information war, right? That we're in. It's happening quietly behind the scenes that hasn't hit the major news yet. But it's these cyber criminals, these threat actors that are taking advantage of our small business clients. And what are we doing to protect them, right? And ourselves. And so I opened up even more after this security event. There's even some things that you hold back when you're talking in a group with other MSPs that you feel like you don't want to open up. But I was just like, here it is.
Yeah.
You can make fun of me for my faults or what I did wrong. I don't care. I'm learning from it.
Yeah.
I'm here to share everything I've got here to hopefully get you to share too, so we can learn from each other.
Absolutely.
So.
Well, hey, I really appreciate the transparency today, and talking through the nitty gritty of what happened. At the same time, I mean, listeners are going to benefit from a lot of the tidbits of information, and the reality is, you need to clean up your house. Or it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, and how are you going to respond to a lot of these types of situations, right? So, you need to be insured.
Yeah.
Multi-factor authentic, just all of those things, as well as just the candid conversation around how you buckle down and then talk to the clients and had real world uncomfortable conversations and have come through the other side. I think that's super cool too.
Yeah, and I think there's something to be said too about the fact that the landscape is constantly changing, right? So even if you feel like you have everything in order today, that doesn't mean it shouldn't be revisited in 6 months to a year from now to just make sure you didn't miss anything, right? Yeah. Or maybe there's some new vulnerability or a better way to set access to data up, right, than you previously thought. I've learned, I still learn a lot. I consider myself part of the leadership in our industry that's helping kind of set the path for being a secure MSP.
Yeah.
But I never once never do I try to shoot myself in the foot thinking I know it all now.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like, I know enough to be good today, but I'm going to be better tomorrow. It's kind of my slogan that I go off of.
Yeah. Well, that's your mantra. I mean, you hit it early on. It's that act of ever improving. You're on a sandhill. If you stop, you're going backwards. So better keep climbing and improve that next bit.
Yep, for sure. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I have one last question for you that I love to ask. You've been in business a long time, and if you could go back and talk to your younger self of 10, 15 years ago, what advice would you give yourself, whether that's personal or in business?
It's interesting because I wish I could be less naive when I was younger, thinking that I had all the answers.
Sure.
That was what I felt like, I mean, we're a 15-year-old company now. In my mind, I'm thinking if I would have known some of the things I know now, I could have been, easily double my size, and it really, and I think part of it is just where we're based too, because we're in a San Luis Obispo County is only 250,000 people.
Sure.
So we're kind of in our bubble,
Yeah.
and we're not in the big city. I'm not seeing these, IT events come through our area that I'm able to go to, no problem, So
Yeah.
I felt like I was in this bubble of, I know how to do things the right way. And like, I'm the best IT company because of X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
And we even developed our own PSA and our own password management system because I had a web department. And
Sure.
it wasn't until 2016 where I actually outgrew our web department and were able to keep up with our requests that I started, I guess, getting myself out of that box, that I was trapped in, and really realizing we have a great industry, the MSP industry, as far as resources for helping us grow our business and be successful. It's a very tight-knit group. It's rare that I see so many competitors in an industry be willing to work with each other and share so much.
Agreed.
And just the fact there is already so many tools out there that I was thinking in my head, I've been wanting to develop. I just haven't had time yet. And
Sure.
There it is, out of the box. That is exactly what I want. And
that's cool.
From 2016 to 18, I mean, I grew. I was at just under $1 million. I grew to 1.8 million. Within those 2 years, just making use of the community, learning what people are doing to help automate things, be more efficient, integrating tools, delegating off of my shoulders. That was the other big thing, is not realizing I was the bottleneck that I was in my company. It was kind of this ego thing you have to get over. Like, you have to blame yourself when something goes wrong, and it's because you're the bottleneck. Either you just deal with that, or you figure out how to not be the bottleneck. So it doesn't happen next time. And so definitely kind of thinking outside the box, asking for help, understanding that you don't have to reinvent the wheel. And making use of the community, I think are the biggest things. And then personally, definitely wish that I didn't have the ego I had. And it probably goes hand in hand with the being naive. But just, so basically taking the ego out of the equation, meaning don't think less of other people because you feel like they may not be where you're at.
Sure.
And being willing to help them. I've helped smaller MSPs than us out. And out of that, I've learned something that they're doing that I didn't even think about, that I could bring to my business, even though I'm, a larger, more mature MSP.
Yeah.
And so not feeling like you have all the answers.
Yeah.
And being willing to, swallow your pride, if you will.
Yeah. That's great advice.
That's the biggest thing. And it also really helps people open up too. When I'm in certain groups and you can tell there's someone that just feels like they have all the answers and they're doing it this way because of XYZ. And if you're not doing it that way, you're crazy. I find that they don't really add to the conversation, and almost people almost tend to shut down a little bit because they don't want to be open and be criticized, for something. So just, getting rid of that ego is something I wish I would have done a better job of younger.
Yeah.
And I still have an ego.
Yeah.
It's not like the ego goes away once you realize it's there.
That's right. Your battle, right?
Yeah.
We all have them.
Yep. So.
Oh, that's cool. That's great advice. Appreciate you answering the question on both those fronts. Well, Brian, thank you for your time today. Again, wrapping up, I know you're a busy guy and have a lot to attend to, but it sure was valuable to not only learn about how you started your business and got into this industry, but also work through some real challenges coming out on the other side. And now in the business of not only growing your business, but helping other people, which is really cool. And I can imagine that's fulfilling. So thank you for your time.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
You bet, man.